Hello, and welcome to DidYouKnowGaming Extra. Today, we're looking at quite a wide range of Nintendo DS games that were censored. Due to the system being largely aimed at a younger audience in the West, many DS games were altered when brought to the region. But before we get to the trivia, we'd like to talk about this episode's sponsor. Censorship is a digital card game that focuses on a unique AI-based system and is based on the anime of the same name, which you can check out on YouTube. Players fight alongside and against AI that gives advice throughout the game, just like playing with a friend. But don't expect this to be a cakewalk, as the AI uses machine learning techniques to adapt to your playstyle. Players have 16 different AI wingmen to choose from, but there's no rush while fighting. You can take breaks between turns. Or, if you're wanting something more intense, you can fight real players PvP style. Battles unfold in 3 phases: a mana movement phase, a flash phase, and the main phase. Censorship features a unique mana movement system that lets players pull minion cards from the field and use them as temporary mana to summon new minions. Managing your mana, choosing the right elemental force, and setting up counterattacks are vital for success. Players can build a deck from 500 different cards in 7 different categories, all while enjoying the game's great anime-styled graphics and visual effects. Censorship just had a worldwide release on mobile and has a surge of new players. If you want to get in on the action, download Censorship now from the link in the description to have the chance of receiving up to 240 of 500 cards during the ongoing events and campaigns happening in July. You can also use the hashtag censoredACI on Twitter and Facebook to connect with other players. Now back to the trivia. In Harvest Moon DS, there are several minigames within a casino, including blackjack, poker, and a memory game. In Western releases, the word casino was removed from the game's images. This censorship went even further in the European release, with the blackjack and poker minigames being replaced with the same memory-matching game. This was likely done to keep the game's age rating low in Europe, as the PEGI ratings board is more strict about references to gambling when rating a game. Another small change can be seen in the game's introduction, where the mayor is attacked by the player's dog. Outside of Japan, the screen fades to white as the mayor is attacked. However, the Japanese game has a more gruesome implication, with the screen fading to red. South Korea has a law where the country's citizens aren't allowed to gamble, with a few exceptions, even outside of the country. This law also impacts how video games are localized in the region, with gambling being removed to avoid an adult rating. One such censored game was Mario Party DS. The Korean version of the title was altered in multiple ways. The minigames Chips and Dips, as well as Shuffleboard Showdown, were outright cut due to their strong casino theme. The board Bowser's Pinball Machine was also altered, with the slot machine area being changed to a game where players time button presses to hit an alien ship. A whack-a-mole game was also added in place of the roulette area. Likely because of these laws, Super Mario 64 DS was also censored. The Rec Room area gave access to a whole range of casino and gambling-based games, but was removed from the Korean version. As a result of this, the MIPS rabbits that unlocked the minigames when caught were also cut from the game. When Pokemon Diamond and Pearl released in South Korea, they were subject to the same kind of censorship. The slot machines in Veilstone's Game Corner were made non-playable. When Pokemon Platinum was released, the slot machines were still non-playable in Korea, but also became non-playable in the Europe versions too. This censorship carried over to Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver, where every region besides Japan had its slot machines replaced with a new skill-based minigame called Voltorb Flip. Further Pokemon games would remove the Game Corner altogether. Professor Layton and the Curious Village also had an unusual instance of censorship. The character Jarvis was originally called Guinness in the Japanese game. This was changed in the English version, as the name wasn't simply a reference to an alcoholic drink, but also a multi-billion-dollar corporation that could have easily taken the game's developers to court. Another small piece of naming censorship can be found in the DS spiritual successor to Okami, Okami Den. The game's Death Beast enemies were actually named God Beast or Godly Beast enemies in the Japanese version of the game. This was likely changed to remove any inclusion of the word God, particularly in the United States. The WarioWare series has had many regional changes over the course of its history. The franchise's titles are often based in Japanese culture, and needed to be altered to make sense to Westerners when the games were brought to North America and Europe. However, not all changes were made just so ideas weren't lost in translation. One example can be seen in WarioWare DIY, where the letters in Mona's breakdown microgame were altered. a diving swimmer was swapped out for a more covered-up gymnast, and what appears to be a cross-dressing man was also removed from the microgame. WarioWare Touched had some regional censorship as well. In the game's South Korean version, the microgame Sweet Nothings replaced the blushing person being blown in their ear with a cat. This could be due to the character's reaction, who seems vaguely aroused. In the international versions of the Gunslinger microgame, the gun on the top screen was removed. The gun shown in the Japanese game is the Famicom equivalent of the NES Zapper. It's not known why the gun wasn't simply changed to an NES Zapper in the West, but it's likely Nintendo wanted to avoid any illustrations of guns altogether and left the gun out. Interestingly, the gun was added back into the game's Chinese localization. The bizarre dating sim minigame compilation title, Feel the Magic XYXX, was also censored between regions. The changes can be immediately seen on the title screen of the Western releases. While these versions show a silhouetted woman in a bikini, the Japanese game's title screen showed her topless. Although this censorship wasn't applied to Europe, the region decided to give the title a more suggestive name, Project Rub. The dungeon-crawling RPG From the Abyss was also censored in the West. The character Helen had her design altered, which can even be seen on the game's box arts. Helen could be seen on the back of the Japanese box art, but was put front and center for the North American cover. Some fans noticed that Helen's clothes were altered on the American box art to cover up more of her chest. The game's logo also seems to have been strategically placed to hide as much skin as possible. 3 more DS games, Luminous Arc 2, Steel Princess, and Super Robot Tyson OG Saga Endless Frontier all had their box arts altered. Luminous Arc 2 and Endless Frontier's box arts were altered to cover up and obscure women's chests, while Steel Princess extended Kukri's dress to cover the top of her legs. Your Brain Coach was actually pulled from store shelves in the United Kingdom after its release. This was due to complaints of the word spastic appearing on screen when players didn't perform well. Interestingly, this same English language version was sold unaltered in Australia, as the word is not considered particularly offensive in the region. Brain Coach was recalled, but another DS game narrowly avoided the same fate. In 2007, one man from Northern Ireland suggested certain words should be removed from Scrabble for the Nintendo DS. Mr. McAdam was playing Scrabble on the DS with his daughter, and they were stuck trying to find the last 5-letter anagram in their session. McAdam told Belfast Telegraph, "I hit the give up option and the term lesbo appeared on the screen. I nearly fell out of my chair." According to the Chamber's official Scrabble dictionary, lesbo is defined as a derogatory slang short form of lesbian. The rules of Scrabble dictate that if a word is present in the dictionary, it can be used in the game, no matter the meaning. Although Ubisoft didn't recall or censor the game, they did apologize and explained the word's inclusion, saying, "In the case of Scrabble 2007, the game uses a word list based on the Chamber's official Scrabble dictionary, and all approved words contained in this dictionary are playable in the game. The dictionary includes words used in the English language that may be considered unusual or offensive. It is for this reason that the game includes a junior option, which will prevent the player and computer using these unusual or offensive words in play. However, lesbo is not considered offensive by the official dictionary, and therefore is playable in both options. This wasn't the only instance where a company was pressured to recall or change their product. In 2009, a news report was published by WPRI's News 10, highlighting a mother's claims that the DS was indoctrinating her children into Islam. The mother purchased baby pals on the DS for her child, and reportedly heard the babies in the game saying, "Islam is the light." However, according to a representative from publisher Crave Entertainment, this wasn't the case. The sound bit wasn't recorded by Crave, and actually came from a licensed recording of a baby babbling. This same licensed sample was also used in Fisher-Price's Little Mummy Cuddle and Coo line of dolls, which was also accused of uttering the religious phrase. The Crave representative pointed out that the 5-month-old baby being recorded was too young to pronounce the alleged phrase or speak in grammatically correct sentences. And now it's time for this episode's random piece of trivia. Today, we're talking about Super Monkey Ball Banana Splits for the PlayStation Vita. The Japanese version of the game has downloadable maps featuring swimsuit model Yuki Kawamura. These levels were only accessible via codes that were in specially marked boxes. Kawamura appears many times pasted over and over in the maps, with her breasts being bumps in the platforms that the player can roll over. This may have been deemed inappropriate for a kid-friendly game, which is why it hasn't been available in other countries for download since its release. Did you also know that a Russian schoolgirl plagiarized the story of Ocarina of Time and sold the book to great success in her home country? For more facts, check out our video on Zelda plagiarism. Don't forget to also check us out on twitch.tv/DidYouKnowGaming, where we play games all throughout the week and like to just have a little chat with our community. Shout out to our Twitch regulars, they're really stellar people.